Georgia Tech beating number 4 Miami, handing Miami their first loss of the entire season, 28-23. Let's go over the highest grade players, starting off with the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Their highest grade player was offensive tackle Corey Robinson, the second, 82.9 grade. Jackson Hall as a tight end at 82.8. Kyle Efford, the linebacker, at a 78.1. Rylan Godey, the tight end, at a 74.8. And linebacker EJ Lightsey at a 71.4, with Haynes King rounding it out at a 77.2. Let's go over to the Miami side of the ball with their highest grade players and their first loss of the season. OJ Frederick Jr., the cornerback, at a 80.5. Jalen Alderman, 78.8. Markel Bell, the offensive tackle, at a 78.4. Jacoby George at a 77.2, the wide receiver. Damian Martinez, the running back, at 74.7. And Cam Ward with a 70 grade in the loss. So, Dalton, for you, what was the stat that tells the story in Miami's first loss of the year?
I say it all the time. You let a team get in their wheelhouse, they can beat you. And Georgia Tech was living in their wheelhouse. 271 yards on the ground, 5.6 yards per carry, had the ball for almost 35 minutes. They ran for 2 touchdowns. They had their second best run blocking grade of the season. They established from the very beginning of this game that they were going to run the football because that's what they do. And there's some other situational stuff that makes this even worse for Miami, but Georgia Tech, when they get in all the option stuff and they can pop off 5 yards a carry, we've seen this how many times this year? It goes all the way back to week 0 against Florida State, right? Mm-hmm. They get in their wheelhouse, they can beat you. And I'll tell you what, I think it hurts even more for Miami knowing all the things that happened developing, especially early in this game. One, Haynes King, clearly not 100%. Mm-mm. I don't know if we could call him 70%. He could not throw the football. He threw the ball 6 times in this game. Max's average depth of target was negative 1.5 yards. But Haynes King...
That's insane.
Yeah.
I did not know.
Haynes King, he threw like 1 ball past the line of scrimmage, I think, and it was like 4 yards. No, a negative average depth of target. Basically, when Haynes King was in there, they were going to run it. And when they needed to throw it, they were putting true freshman Aaron Philo out there to throw the ball. Okay? So just based on the quarterback on the field, Miami should know what the call is. Yeah. Haynes King threw a couple of screens, and I think 2 of them were jet sweeps. Really, I mean, Haynes King could not throw the football, and Miami still gave up 270 yards on the ground. Aaron Philo is a true freshman. He actually threw a touchdown in this game. They put him out there because he had an arm. That's pretty much where we were at. And Zach Pyron the last couple weeks didn't get the job done, so they went with a true freshman. And Jamal Haynes, after a first drive where he carried them down to their first touchdown, played 5 snaps in this game. The very next drive, he got hurt. And that was it for Jamal Haynes. So they were down their top running back. Haynes King was incapable of throwing the football. And Georgia Tech still managed to out-physical Miami and get in their wheelhouse. It's the most rushing yards Miami's given up since 2020. I don't know if you remember this game against North Carolina where Javonte Williams, the Javonte and Michael Carter game, where they ran for over 500 yards. Yeah. This is the most rush yards they've given up since that game.
Damn.
So, look, Miami they let Georgia Tech get in their wheelhouse, and they limited drives, and they limited Cam Ward's opportunities, and they had the ball for 35 minutes, and they just found a way to grind it out and get one big play on defense at the end, and that was that. But it starts everything with Georgia Tech. They got weapons on the outside. They have Singleton and Rutherford, and they can do some things, but everything starts with the run game. And they got to the run game, and they played the game at the pace that they want to play it. It looked exactly like the Florida State game at the beginning of the season. They just controlled the pace of the game.
Dawn, I don't think I've ever seen a negative 1.5 yard average at the target. I've never seen it before.
He could not. He literally could not throw the football.
It's almost like a lateral at every play. Basically, that's insane. That's crazy. If you told me that was the average at the target for Haynes King and Jamal Haynes to play 5 snaps, I would say Miami's going to wipe the floor with them. And they didn't. They lost this game, which just shows how amazing that run game was for Georgia Tech and the fact they were able to rely on that even with Miami knowing exactly what's going to happen. I'll get into that, my most impressive as well, because I think that goes right into it. But my side to tell the story, though, on money downs, Miami was 4 for 14 on 3rd and 4th down. Georgia Tech was 9 for 14 on 3rd and 4th down. On money downs, Miami, negative .719 EPA per play. Negative 1.001 EPA per pass. If you get into the negative 1, like not even the decimals anymore, that's really bad. Georgia Tech was .74 EPA per play on money downs and .952 EPA per pass. Almost a full 2 points better than Miami in terms of EPA per pass. And on the most important plays of the game, Dawn, they needed Cam Ward to be Superman, and he tried. He really did. He was dancing around back there. But honestly, it didn't happen despite his best efforts. And Georgia Tech only had 99 passing yards, but on the times they did need to throw the football on money downs, they were beautifully designed to get first downs, honestly. So really the stat tells the story is that Miami just was 4 for 14 on 3rd and 4th down, and Georgia Tech was 9 for 14. Kept drives alive, scored touchdowns because of it, and Miami just couldn't do it. They couldn't punch it in.
And Tech being 9 of 14 on 3rd and 4th down is another reason they were able to extend those drives. They were in good 3rd down situations, short yardage. They were picking up their 4 or 5 yards a carry, and they could keep running the ball on 3rd down, right? I mean, it all went together to play Georgia Tech's style of ball, and you mentioned it, Cam Ward had to be Superman, and this is what we questioned with Miami is, okay, is the rest of their team stacked up enough? Do they run the ball enough? They didn't run the ball enough in this game. It wasn't good enough. Is their defense... Does it have enough depth beyond the defensive line to get it done, right? And I mean, and this was a game where their defensive line was obviously challenged with the way this Georgia Tech team was running, but I just don't. This was the problem for Miami. It was too much about one guy and one guy putting up monster stats. And the other thing too, I believe this is the 4th game where they were behind by double digits in the second half. They won the first 3. But that's not a way to live every single week. You can't be down 2 scores in the second half every week and expect to win all of them, right? Eventually, you're just not going to get it done. So Miami, look, these are the things that have hurt them this year and just haven't hurt them enough to come into, to become a loss. Now the breathing room is gone.
Yep.
And once again, Georgia Tech is the team that's the thorn in their side, and this doesn't ruin their season like it did last year, because that was just a whole different thing last year. But the breathing room is now all of a sudden not there. If Miami gets to 2 losses one way or the other, we're gonna have serious questions about
11-2
should they be in or not.
If they lose the game in the regular season, or actually if they win out in the regular season and then lose in the ACC title game, I don't know if they get in.
They are going to be extremely borderline.
Yeah,
if that's the case, they're going to be really borderline because their wins, I mean, list out their wins. It's
Louisville.
It's Florida. Louisville's the best win.
Yeah.
You got Louisville, not Virginia, Cal,
Duke.
Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, I should say. Duke is like solid, but there's not a monster win in there, and they probably need to hope Louisville keeps winning and finishes somewhere in the top 18 to 20 for that to hold up. And even then, they gave up 45 points in that game. So I was worried about
Syracuse at the end of the year. I mean, Syracuse, tough loss yesterday.
But you know what? To your point,
they beat Virginia Tech.
To your point,
another one.
If Miami's secondary keeps playing the way they played in weeks prior to this, that could be an issue.
Yeah.
I think that's where we're at with this Miami team. If Cam Ward doesn't grade a 90 any given week or doesn't have a crazy second half, this is what they look like.
No, I mean, Virginia Tech's also a solid win, but like I said, there's just not that, besides Louisville, they have not beaten a top 25 team besides them, honestly. So, yeah, it's tough. It's tough for Miami. They really are backs against the wall right now. Dawn, for you, what was the most impressive part of the Georgia Tech victory?
This game was ugly. I got to be honest with you. It's not even like a big stat thing or anything. I'm just surprised the way that the condition he was in, that Haynes King gutted this game out. I got to be honest with you. He was basically a glorified running back in this game, if we're being honest. 20 with whatever shoulder injury he has that clearly has him at not very healthy. 23 carries for 85 yards and a touchdown, taking hits in there. I mean,
he was lowering his right shoulder in some of those hits too. He's a gamer.
I guess they told him impact is fine and throwing isn't, because
he can't feel good though.
He was basically a wildcat quarterback in this game, and he found a way to gut it out and just lead this team to a win like this. It was an ugly game on both sides of the ball, but Haynes King, I guess, getting through all of the ugliness, I'm going to give him credit for that. That takes, I'll tell you what, that takes a leader is what it takes.
Absolutely.
I'm serious. With that sort of injury, he could have easily sat out and been, but he wanted to go out there and win this game, and he did it.
Absolutely. My most impressive part was the Georgia Tech offensive line. So that Miami defensive line, man, we were at that Louisville game. We were on the field, and you and I turned to each other like, that's an NFL D line right there with all those guys on there. And the Yellow Jackets didn't flinch one bit looking at that defensive line. Georgia Tech offensive line had a 71.2 grade as a unit. The highest before this year against Miami was a 63.4, so the highest by like 8 points. It's the highest pass blocking grade by an offensive line against Miami all year, and the highest run blocking grade against Miami all year as well. They knew that without a passing game, they only had 99 passing yards total in this game. They knew without a passing game, they needed to be the more physical team. And they did that in this one, both pass blocking and run blocking wise. I want to shout out the Georgia Tech offensive line for they're not the sexiest part, they're not Haynes King or any of the running backs or any of the receivers, but they got the job done against what is one of the best D lines in the country. And Georgia Tech's offensive line was one of the biggest reasons why they won this game.
Gotta love a good offensive line, don't you?
Yeah.
It's just awesome to watch. It is. And I mean, and you're right there. It's guys like that and efforts like what King gave them that make a win like this possible, especially a gritty.
No Jamal Haynes either. It's not like
especially a gritty run game win like this. I mean, no, you're right. That's absolutely the unit to call out there.
Absolutely. Hey, thanks for watching another episode of the PFF College Football Show. Please make sure you guys subscribe to the channel.
Also, subscribe to PFF Plus at subscribe.pff.com for all of the same data and grades that we use in our show, plus fantasy tools, betting tools, and our mock draft simulator.